This is a video on how to change the glass on a solar panel for a Solahart system. Here's a Solahart system. I have it mounted on the ground so it's easier to service than way up on a two-story house. My future major leaguer threw a rock and it broke the glass panel, and it's already replaced, and this video is kind of after the fact, but I was going to walk through it. So the issue was, one of these panels, the glass was broken. It's tempered glass, as you can see by the little tempered bug stamp down there. So as soon as it cracks into a zillion pieces. They're not to be replaced. If you talk to the Solahart guys, they weren't very helpful. The local dealer didn't really want to help me out. Basically, you could buy a new panel for, I don't know, they were like $1,200 or something like that. I was thinking of replacing it with another panel. I found some panels on Craigslist. Here's a used panel. I found one there. You'll see it's missing its glass. I'll explain that in a minute. And I was just going to swap out the panel. But the problem is it looks like there was a model change at some time. This is an old panel from the 90s, and this fitting here was bigger than my model, which is a 2006 or 2008 model. This fitting here is smaller, and if you notice, if you've ever pulled those fittings, they have this little plastic seal on there, and so it gets kind of complicated. Most likely it's metric. This is videos in the United States, so we're going to have some fitting issues. So we decided to swap out the glass. To swap out the glass, there's rivets holding that panel in. So you can see there's a rivet right in there, all along there. And so the idea is we take that off and then swap out, drill all those rivets out, take that thing off, take off the old glass, and then I took the glass panel off of this one. Another idea is gave up some efficiency and maybe use a piece of plexiglass so that when another rock hits it, it doesn't break again, or go to a glass shop and have them cut the glass to size and temper it. But what you want is a frosted on the bottom side of towards the panel, and then smooth on the outside facing the sun. Okay, so here's another panel, one of those two used ones I bought. You can see those rivets right there. And I took a 9/64 drill bit and just went around and drilled all of them out. You don't have to drill them all the way through. You could just drill the head off. And then you take a screwdriver and just kind of pry up a little bit in here between the panel and frame, and just make sure you can pop that rivet loose. Once you do that, this frame will lift off, but there's the old frame, but it's glued down with this rubber silicone or rubber, some sort of double sticky mat. So on the glass panel has it's sealed on both sides, one underneath this metal frame, and then it's sealed underneath the glass against the frame itself. So the glass is sandwiched between two pieces of that rubber. So this one you have to just kind of peel off and take it off. And then once you have the glass off, all we did was take a razor blade and slit it between the glass and the frame. So we just took the razor blade and got between the glass and the frame. You do not want to use a screwdriver and try to pry the glass up. One little nick and the whole glass just shatters on you. It's tempered. There's no forgiving. You won't just chip one edge or anything. So don't even think about trying to pry the glass. Just get a razor blade, stick it down in there, and then start working through, or some other scraper blade. So once you get the old glass off, you'll have to go through and scrape it up. You might want to put on gloves. There's a bunch of little glass shards stuck into this stuff. Now this one's not showing it. Here, just a sec. I'll get a picture of what it looks like. This is what it looks like when you pull it off. Just a bunch of zillion little shards stuck to that double sticky tape. Once you get those off, You want to clean up that frame really smooth and clean. That sticky that they use for it, I have no idea what it is, but carb cleaner doesn't really cut it. Acetone didn't really cut it. But acetone and a rag, if you scrub on it, it does tend to get it pretty clean, and we got it down to pretty much bare metal all the way around. So then you're ready for your piece of glass. The measurements are, the dimensions of the piece of material you want to use is 40 inches by 76 inches. Of course, perfectly square. So you could buy that ahead of time if you like. You just need to have it ready for when you do this. Okay, so next, then you want to put some weather strip seal. We couldn't find any stuff with double sticky sides. You might be able to have better luck. So what we did is find a regular weather strip with sticky on one side, and then the top side didn't have any stick to it. So we went and got some double-sided sticky tape and put that on top. Then we set some blocks down in the middle here, 2 on each end, and that were slightly higher than this rail here. And then that allowed us to set the glass down on top without touching that sticky exposed pad. We can get it all lined up on all the corners, down on all the corners. And then we just lifted the block out of each end and set one end down on the corner. We didn't seal it all the way down. We just set one end just so it kind of kept the alignment. And then we went down to the other end and pulled those blocks out, and then set the glass down in there, and then walked around and set it in place. Now this metal does bow out a little bit, so you might want to push this in and then push down on the glass before it's set in place. So once you have that glass in place and it looks good, remember if you mess it up, well, weather stripping's cheap. Just tear it all apart again and start over. The amount of material you need, you're going to need 40 feet of weather stripping, actually just under 39 feet, but just by 2 20-foot lengths is what we had to do. Then you set another piece of weather stripping. Once your glass is on top and covering this edge, you put another piece of weather stripping on top of that glass, and we put the sticky side down, and then we put sticky tape on top of that, and then we come in and we put the railing over the top of that. Something I failed to suggest is before you take that railing off, remember which side each one goes to so that you can line up these drilled holes so that they all line up when you put it back on. Sorry about that. This is one of those instructions where before you do that, you do something else. But see these little holes right here? They're going to line up unique to that previous railing. So get the one that came off of this side, so you can, if you did lose sight of it, you could just put it on. If it doesn't line up, grab the other end and it'll be the right one. And then we had to, basically it's a 2-man process. One person was holding on each side of this thing and pushing down into that weather stripping so until that hole lined up. And then instead of putting rivets back in, we put in screws, and I'll show that just a sec. We put in screws instead of rivets, and we put these hex head screws so that you can get to tight places. Like up in the top here, where you can't get to it in the corner, you could get to it with a hex head, but you couldn't get to it with a regular screwdriver like a Phillips. So anyways, then you start at the railing, line up your holes, just start pushing down on it, screwing all the holes in, go all the way around until you got it all in. Then the panel's complete again. This is a job, it was a lot easier for us to take this panel off and put it on a bench in an old shop I have here and work on it. Made the job real easy. It was definitely, you do not want to attempt this by yourself. That panel with the glass on it's pretty heavy. The panel by itself is not too bad, but with the glass on there it gets pretty heavy. But it was a 2-man job. Suggest about 3 hours. After we've done it, we could probably do it in an hour, but you want a second set of hands, and it was just take your time, go through it slow. Again, if you get another panel, these fittings may not be the right size, so you might be better off just buying a piece of tempered glass from a glass shop. What you'd really like is some of that Gorilla Glass like they sell on the iPhones or something, but I suspect that's probably going to be $15,000 for a piece that big. But anyhow, your mileage may vary. And next you got to put the panel on and hook it all back up again. This is a little unique. Most of these things are up on a roof, and I'm not sure exactly what fixtures they're using for them, but we use the same fixtures they used on the roof. So we've had 2 or 3 of these systems over the years. This one's a little different than some of the others, so yours is probably going to be a little different. We just have it set down here. What you need to do is pull out this so you can give yourself some room here. You got to go up there. Inside there is this coupling nut. You want to back one of these guys out, one of the back those out, and that's how you get it out. To put it back in, you just reverse the process. You set the panel in place and then slide it over into those tubes, line them up and tighten them up. You don't need to wrench these things super tight. They're not under pressure. They're actually going to be under pressure when it first heats up, but eventually it won't be under pressure. Get all your pipes hooked up. There's one there. And then down here, this is where you're going to fill it. This is a little stopper here. You're actually going to fill here, push the antifreeze up into the panel, and then it comes out on this vent hole here. So you're going to go and take this guy out and fill it up until it comes out of there. If I remember right, there was something in the manual about how much to put in there and stuff, but regardless, once you have it full and it starts heating up, then you got to open this up and burp it. The air inside that's trapped in there starts expanding, comes out, and over the next couple days you just need to kind of crack this open and let the air weep out, and then you can tighten it back up again. The antifreeze you want to use, Solahart makes a product that's safe, non-toxic. Well, I don't know, it's not super safe, not super non-toxic, but put it this way, it's not antifreeze that'll kill you if you drink it. So if it leaks into your system, it's not going to kill you. They have some. I couldn't get my hands on it, but I did find out it's basically or primarily propylene glycol, and propylene glycol is a safe version to ethylene glycol, which is normally used in your car. Let's see if I can find it. There it is. So it's propylene glycol. So I found some of that, and our system took a good 5 gallons or more. So when you drain it originally, you could probably recapture it, put a hose over this, drain it off into a bucket. But we pulled out almost a full 5-gallon bucket out of 2 panels. If you got 3 panels, of course, you're going to have more. So we bought 1 more gallon extra. And since this system was only a couple years old when I put it in, we decided to just reuse what I had before. There's nothing wrong with it. If it was 15 or 20-year-old system, I'd probably just get new material the whole time. But we did buy an extra gallon, and we went through all of that, and so somehow we lost a little bit somewhere. So what I did to fill it was I found a hose that would, once you pull that plug off, this hose fit over that and fit into this little hose, and then take the other end and shove it into your bucket, or in this case we also had a 5-gallon bucket. And so now you got the liquid connection. We set the bucket way up high up here, and basically to set up a siphon, you don't want to be sucking on this antifreeze if you can help it. To set up a siphon, we set up a shop vac. Just put it over this until the antifreeze leaked out of the hose, went down into the bottom, and it'll start filling all the way up these panels. And as long as you keep the liquid in the bucket above this hole, it'll fill all the way up to this hole. Now it did take a while, 5 gallons, it takes a good half hour or hour or more, and you may not want to stand there. So if you just set it down below here, it'll stop when it gets to this level. And then when you come back, you can actually just set the bucket up above, and as long as you didn't break and get air bubbles in the line, you've got a siphon still set up, and it'll start over again until it comes out of here. So once you have it to where it's leaking out of here, you can go ahead and cap this off, and then go down there and take your hose off and plug it real quick, so it doesn't leak out as little as you can get away with. And then right now we're waiting for the sun to come out just to get the panels warmed up, and it'll start expanding that air that's in there so we can burp this up here. And that's pretty much it. If you're up on a roof doing this and you don't want to have to go up there more than you have to, it's probably a good idea to break up inside this guy and check that sacrificial anode that's in there. It's a little piece of zinc or magnesium or whatever the heck it is. But anyways, it corrodes so that the tank won't corrode. It'll corrode before the tank. So you can check it, and if it's pretty much gone, you may want to get a new one of those. I heard something about every 5 years or 7 years you want to replace those anyhow. Of course, the tank has to be emptied and drained there, otherwise it's just going to come pouring out the hole. It's just a piece of material going into the tank. You might want to, if you've already drained it, then you don't need to flush it, but otherwise you might want to flush it off of the overflow valve, the high pressure overflow valve right there, and drain it all out. And Solahart, quite frankly, I think it's the best thermal siphon model out there. We've had one on another house. One was replaced in 2004 after being up there since 1980, so 24 years. Finally, something, I forget what it is, the tank started leaking or something to that effect. Had I known in foresight, I would have kept the panels from it, but we had them haul it off. So there's another one on that roof going right now without any issues whatsoever. I picked this one up and put this on this new house we have here. And it's also, or at least for a while, I don't know if it still is, it was not manufactured, but marketed by Rheem, R-H-E-E-M, big HVAC company, and they make water heaters. But it's basically the same system. The system we have here isn't much different than the one that we bought in 1980. Very similar. The panels are probably a little more efficient nowadays, but as far as the tank and hookups and the way it works, and if you don't know how they work, I'm kind of doing an advertisement for Solahart because I do think they're probably the most solid system on there. Is basically the sun heats up the antifreeze, it goes up into this tank just because hot liquid rises, goes in, heats the water, and while it does that, the antifreeze cools off and then comes down the big long hose out the other side, and it just starts that whole cycle when the sun's shining. When the sun's not shining, it's hot on top from the hot water and cold down here, so therefore no hot water rises and it shuts itself off. It doesn't use any power, no electricity, and just sits up there, like I said, for 24 years and just goes and does its business. You can get extremely hot water out of this. This is in the southwest United States here, so we get lots of sunshine, and especially during the summer months, but even on sunny winter days, it gets extremely hot, so you can get really hot water coming out of here. And if you got little kids in the house, it's probably not a good idea to have that going straight in the house. So what we did is we put in a tempering valve. I forget who makes it, Honeywell, I guess. If I remember right, it was about $70 or $100 or something. It's not cheap, but it sure made all the difference in the world to temper this off. And also a good thing about a tempering valve is it allows your hot water to last a little bit longer, in the sense that you can run the hot water tank a little bit hotter, and on reserve, when the sun's not shining, there's a heating element in here. Some people have gas, some have electric. If it's gas, don't worry about it, but electric, what it does is it only heats the top half of the tank, just because the hot water rises. So they put the element kind of high, and you only get about a half or a quarter of the tank actually hot water. But if you run that a little bit hotter, you can do this. But I prefer to keep it low and let the sun do most of the work. And this thing only kicks in when we have actually very little sun. Oh, another thing, while you're up on the roof doing this, you might want to replace all these. These little insulators tend to fail over time. We're working on one right now. And don't waste your hot water to the air. All right, that's all I can think of. Sorry I didn't give it hands-on while I was doing it, but just kind of paying back for all those times I go to YouTube to figure out how to do something. I couldn't find anything on Solahart on YouTube. This was a few months ago. Maybe somebody's got something out there now. If they did, hey, thanks, appreciate it. Didn't get to see it, but if this is the only one out there, well, hopefully it helps somebody out. And if you got any questions, you can send me a message, and see if I can help you out. Good luck.